Patrick, your thoughts on The Invisible Man Returns?
The movie's okay. I don't find it all that thrilling. I think it's got a couple of very good scenes. I think this scene where he torments Willie Spears in the woods is a good deal of fun.
Yeah.
The scene where Cobb in the house discovers that Jeffrey is implicating him and then starts just like shooting around is pretty fun. And then going into the gassing the place up is fun. And then the coal scene is fun. I think the rest of the movie, it's not a poorly paced movie, but it's just, I think we're lacking those, like, compelling performances. I don't really, it's weird because it's like, this is a fugitive movie where it's Vincent Price is trying to solve his murder, and yet, I don't know, I just don't feel like the story ever gives it that aspect. The movie never gives that aspect of the story as much attention as it should. Like, even, for example, when even though I said this is a good scene, when he's going after Willie Spears, it's less about getting information from him, and it's more about him just kind of fucking with him and scaring him, you know? He ends up getting the information, of course, but it really is more of just a wacky hijinks scene that ends up giving him information. So, I don't know. I think it's a decent movie, but really, before the climax, I would have said it was like, meh. And then the climax happens, like, okay, this is decent. Jim, what about you?
I think I don't know if pales in comparison to The Invisible Man would be the most.
Well, it doesn't pale. It's translucent in comparison.
It's translucent in comparison, yeah.
Or transparent, excuse me. Translucent is like semi-transparent, right?
You're right. Yeah, it's not. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think the most exciting parts of the movie to watch are when the cops are doing things. And by that, I mean specifically when Detective Sampson's on screen or...
Yeah. I would have liked him to have gotten more screen time.
I don't want to say everybody else does a poor job of acting in this movie. I just think he's a head and shoulders above everybody else for whatever reason. But he's fantastic. He's a lot of fun to watch. My biggest complaint about this movie is that it almost feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be. It starts out as a kind of...
I can understand that.
Fugitive murder mystery.
Yes.
And then it kind of turns into a sad kind of love story about
there's a little bit of melodrama there.
Yeah, and, where you have Helen watching Jeffrey kind of slip into insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ends as an action movie, but only for the last 5 minutes, maybe?
Yeah.
All that action is just people falling over in a crowd and and cops firing off guns and then a guy falling off or falling into a coal pile.
I can accept like kind of minimal action like that if that's what we have to work with, just on the premise of the movie. Or that there's an invisible guy, and so any fight between someone and an invisible person is just going to be that person struggling by themselves on a little minecart thing. I can accept that, but so I do find that stuff exciting, but there's not a whole lot of it. And I do agree. I think that the changes in tones don't work that well. I think if you look at the original Invisible Man, they worked better because that also had the aspects of melodrama with the fiancé character and stuff. But I think those worked better really just because Claude Rains' performance made them work. And I don't think Vincent Price is on here in this movie is on Claude Rains' level. And I'll also say I would have liked a better villain here too. You know what I mean? I think we're a little lacking in the villain department. And maybe that's just the difference of like the Invisible Man works better as a villain than as a hero, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the strange thing. The Invisible Man in this movie, I don't want to say he's constantly skirting the line of hero and villain, but he's coming close enough to the villainous, to a kind of villainous area. Right. And that's something else that doesn't really work for me. If you're going to make him a hero, make him a hero. If you're going to make him a villain, make him a villain.
Yeah, well, I think they can make him kind of a tortured villain, like an anti-hero, but I don't think Price's performance works with that. I don't think he makes that, if that's what they're going for, I don't think I think it could work, I just think it doesn't here. So I sort of understand what you're saying, but I want to push back on it just a tiny bit.
I also have an issue with like the comedy in it. The comedy in it isn't very funny. Now, I don't expect it to be like hilarious, laugh out loud stuff, but the original Invisible Man, when there was that hijinks scene where Claude Rains runs through the village, takes off on the bicycle, and it's like knocking things over, like that was enjoyable to watch for the effects, for his performance. For
the original Invisible Man makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. This movie, I can understand a few things that are kind of funny, but I agree, I'm not laughing, and I agree.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, two scenes in particular, which might also only be the only two comedic scenes. One is that bumbling constable coming into the cottage. I couldn't stand that actor for whatever reason. I thought it was just a little too ridiculous, and then also this kind of bumbling groundskeeper. Two bumbling people in the same scene. It was just like, it was just too much to handle.
Oh yeah, because the constable, because he was on the phone and the guy told him, make sure you don't let him take his clothes off, and he's like, oh, he's with a woman, he would never take his clothes off. I found that stuff kind of funny, just because it's like, oh, it's the 1940s and we can't have sex in movies. It's almost like funny in a way that it's dated. I did kind of enjoy that, but yeah, I agree with you.
And then even the hijinks scene in this one with
Spears,
it started out as kind of funny, and when he's fiddling with the car and he's drunk and whatever. But then when he chases him into the woods, it should have a kind of scarier tone. It should be a little darker, because at one point he like pushes his head into a puddle. Like he's tormenting this guy and he's choking him with his necktie, for Christ's sake. And it should be scarier, but after he sits up from his head being in the puddle, he goes, "Oh, I must have dozed off. Oh, I'm awake now." Ho ho ho. It's that's not funny. This guy's kind of half insane, and he might be actually trying to kill you.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's really all I have to say about The Invisible Man. It was all right. It was
a decent movie.
You're right. It wasn't
film.
It wasn't unenjoyable to watch, but it was certainly a far cry from the first Invisible Man.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the original Invisible Man, could watch it basically any time. This movie, probably not going to go out of my way to watch it again. If it's on Turner Classic Movies, maybe I'll turn it on. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that.